Hey, welcome back everybody and happy Monday. Hope we're having a wonderful kind of beginning of the week here. And obviously the elephant in the room here at the start is it has been quite some time since I've uploaded a video here, especially one like this. I did upload some tornado footage a couple weeks ago, but obviously that's very different than a forecasting video. So I do want to, kind of talk about that, excuse me, a little bit here at the beginning. So obviously I think last time I posted was kind of the end of the semester there, and between then and now things were a little bit busy. I started a new job, which obviously definitely took some adjusting to with my schedule and just kind of the flow of things. Also, I did some storm chasing, as you saw with that tornado footage. Kind of did a little bit of a storm chasing vacation, if you will. Just kind of did a lot of chasing back to back, and also managed to see the Northern Lights. I'm sure many of you remember that back in May. I want to say really about this time in May is whenever we had that big Northern Light event, that G5 magnetic storm that impacted much of the country. Again, had Northern Lights all the way down to the Bahamas. So obviously that was a big deal, and I was out photographing a lot of that. So again, I do apologize, but the good news is overall things were relatively tame. Now we did have a lot of severe weather events occur for a lot of people, but quite honestly, I'll just put this out there. There's only so much I can do to prepare people for severe weather with these types of videos. That is a lot more of a kind of live streaming sort of event that is just a lot more crucial to saving lives. Not to say that these type of videos aren't important, they definitely are, but to be quite honest, I just didn't feel that, it was, worth maybe the time and energy I was putting into it whenever I had some of those other things ongoing. So, again, do apologize about that. But now here we are. We're getting into kind of the middle of June here, and that means we're getting a little bit deeper into hurricane season. And in today's video, we are going to discuss some of that, as there is potentially some tropical mischief down in the Gulf that could bring some problems to some folks. But either way, definitely some problems to folks down in South Florida with a lot of rain on the way, despite any tropical impacts here within the next couple of days. And again, that'll be a big portion of today's video, is kind of discussing that potential uptick in, again, tropical development here in the Atlantic. Now, I will say, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it. We're slowly but surely turning our way towards 10,000 subscribers, and I definitely think we'll get there by the time the year is over. Probably even by the time hurricane season really starts picking up. Really going to try to hone in on that and kind of continue the growth here on the channel. If you're a regular returning, which I'm sure most of you are, as it has been a while, it means the world to me. Thanks for coming back, and as always, thanks for being so understanding. Again, I am a college student after all, so the schedule changes a lot and just have a lot of things often ongoing. With that said, though, I think that's enough of me yapping on here, about 3 minutes or so of it. So let's go ahead and jump on into this forecast for you and kind of take a look at what's happening out there. Now, currently, taking a look at satellite imagery, this time looking at just good old-fashioned cloud cover, not water vapor loop or infrared, just good old-fashioned clouds. So obviously, white on the screen are clouds, and the areas that we're not seeing that white, we're seeing clear skies. Now, one big thing I want you to note here on satellite is just kind of the presence of this trough that is slowly swinging on down south. And in fact, we kind of have two of them in a way, two separate boundaries that have set up shop. Now, in this kind of area here, we're seeing much drier, nicer air, much more, fall-like compared to maybe spring and summer-like, kind of moving south. And another kind of pocket of that here in between through sections of the mid-south. Now, again, this trough is going to bring some nicer weather for some folks, but unfortunately, it's also going to cause problems for other folks. As this kind of dives southward, notice all this storminess down in the Gulf. It's going to kind of pull that northward and into Florida over the coming days, and going to bring some real, gloomy and even dangerous weather per se, with how much rainfall we're going to see. Flooding could definitely become a problem in some localized areas. And again, we'll take a look at that map here later on. But that's just kind of the overall view of what's happening throughout the country right now. Now, this map does another good job of showing this for us. These are our dew points on this map, and this is actually looped over the past 24 hours, you'll notice here. And just in general, notice how these dew points have gotten beaten back down south as that trough is kind of digging southward, and that drier, nicer, more comfortable air has taken over for a lot of folks. Here in Charlotte, dew point down near 50 feels great outside compared to maybe what you might expect during this point in June, where oftentimes it's a lot more muggy. But I'll tell you, for a lot of folks, it is still quite muggy and does not feel great, and you can see that here. There's kind of a boundary or so that is set up shop from kind of Columbia, South Carolina, back through areas of southern Georgia here, And back down towards Alabama, Mississippi, again, just kind of where that red line is, we have this boundary where a lot of very warm, humid Gulf air is clashing with some of this cooler, drier Canadian air, and that is actually leading to some pretty widespread storms this afternoon. So you'll notice if we take a look at radar imagery where I drew that boundary, we've got a lot of stormy activity from the Midlands of South Carolina back through southern Georgia, Alabama, into Louisiana, and through much of Texas as well, seeing a lot of this stormy weather. So that's definitely something we need to watch out for here, and could bring some strong storms, and even severe criteria is definitely possible by the time today is over. Specifically out here into the Carolinas, southern Georgia, and Alabama, where we've got a little bit more wind shear we're working with, and in fact we could even see an isolated tornado or two not out of the question here in southern Georgia and the low country of South Carolina before today is all said and done. Now, I'm not really going to talk too much about these storms back through Texas and kind of up into the Rockies and Great Plains, but no, those storms also could produce strong winds and large hail today. I just have much less of a viewer base out there, so I'm going to kind of cut down on the video length here and just kind of mention it instead of giving a whole section to it. Now, as I did mention, severe weather today is a real possibility, and by the time you're watching this, probably about 5 o'clock or so this evening, maybe a little bit earlier than that, depending if you're one of the early birds to get to the video. But again, a couple areas we're watching for. One in the southeast, and then again, that bigger area back towards the Rockies and into the northern Great Plains. But again, let's really dive into this area of the southeast where we do have a slight risk of severe weather, including the risk of an isolated tornado throughout the evening hours of tonight. Now I'm going to show you the HRRR model, or high resolution rapid refresh, excuse me. But know that, in all honesty, it's really not handling this situation the best. As I just showed you on radar, storm coverage is a lot more widespread than what is being shown here. But either way, just know anywhere kind of in this circled area tonight could see strong storms from now really through this evening and even into sunset and past then even towards the midnight hour. Main threats: strong straight line winds, a little bit of hail is possible, but mainly strong straight line winds, and a couple, tornadoes are possible in this region, as again, we have a little bit more wind shear that we're working with than some of those other areas that have severe weather threats this afternoon. Now you'll notice going into the evening hours, this storm threat continues even past, kind of past sunset towards 10, 11, and even midnight tonight. Still very scattered, but strong severe storms here from the low country of South Carolina back through Savannah and into southern Georgia. And that will continue throughout the evening hours and into the overnight hours before finally we get into tomorrow morning and things clear out for most of us. However, the big caveat that there is into Florida, where you will notice widespread showers and storms rolling on through. That's really going to be the next thing that we talk about here in this video, is that stormy weather expected in South Florida and why it's maybe a little bit of a bigger deal than maybe you would expect this time of year. Obviously, we see, strong storms in Florida and a lot of rain pretty often in June, but this is going to be a little bit more than a lot of rain, and we'll show you that here on this next map. So here we go. Take a look at the overall flow. This is in kind of the middle layers of the atmosphere, 500 millibars. So that's right between 1,000 millibars at the surface and 0 millibars kind of up in outer space. And notice the wind flow here as we get into tomorrow. Again, much like I showed you earlier with the dew points, here's that trough, specifically this area right here, that is kind of, again, diving south right now, and will continue to do so over the next 24 hours or so. What that's going to do, though, is it's going to get far enough south that we kind of get some flow getting pulled up into this trough out of the Gulf of Mexico. And the Gulf right now is very rich in moisture, a lot of thunderstorm activity, as I showed you with the cloud cover, and all of that's going to get pulled up through the Florida Peninsula, specifically South Florida. I'm talking about folks down into the Fort Myers area, through the Keys, Miami, but again, really that Fort Myers area, I think, is going to be under the gun for a lot of rain over the next 5 days or so, and you'll notice that flow just kind of continues through the next couple of days. Even as we get later on, notice these wind bars are still coming out of the Gulf of Mexico there and just kind of feeding in this train of moisture. Now you can see this even better whenever we look at the lower levels of the atmosphere, 850 millibars, not quite the surface here, but definitely closer to the surface than 500 millibars. And notice what happens. This is getting into tomorrow afternoon. We get a lot of that wind to really get pulled up here, and in fact we're even almost getting a surface low to form here along that trough from all this thunderstorm activity, and that is really going to enhance that flow around here. And quite strong winds are going to be coming off the Gulf here just above our heads, and that's going to lead to a lot lot of precipitable water. What I mean by that is, again, just a lot of moisture, a lot of rain that we can kind of squeeze out of the atmosphere here and bring towards the surface in the form of rainfall. And here we go, showing up. This is Tuesday into Wednesday afternoon. Again, this is about as high as you can get precipitable water-wise, with about looks like 2.5, 3 inches or so. Now, that number you might be saying, okay, about 2.5 inches of rain is going to fall. Not quite how this metric works, but just more or less look at the colors here instead of the numbers. And at the bottom, you'll notice the highest this goes is 3. So whenever we're getting up to 2.5 inches, that is more than enough to cause big time problems. And as somebody who had to study precipitable water a little bit this past semester and code it a little bit and look at kind of some of the effects, I can tell you this is more than enough to cause flash flooding. Now, the good news is this is over the Florida Peninsula. This is a place that isn't necessarily prone to flooding. We get a lot of rain here quite often. The creeks and streams are used to it. Also, we're in actually a little bit of a drought for a lot of Florida. But still, this is a lot of rain that could cause some problems for a lot of folks over the next couple of days. And as we time this out for you, going into tomorrow morning, here we go, Tuesday morning and afternoon. Again, just very widespread heavy rainfall, thunderstorms likely within this as well. And that's going to continue. That's Tuesday afternoon. This is into Wednesday afternoon. More rounds of rain over South Florida from Cape Coral, Fort Myers, over towards Lake Okeechobee, and even through the east coast of Florida. And that just continues through this week. Thursday afternoon, more rounds of rain off the Gulf and coming inland. Definitely, again, going to disrupt travel, likely going to disrupt some fishing that's likely ongoing there. Big fishing industry down in that part of Florida. And just continues through this week. Now, we could get a little bit of a lull going into this weekend, but that's going to come with its own kind of trouble and mischief, if you will, and that's kind of going to be the next part of this video that we talk about. And we'll do it right after I talk about these rainfall totals. All right, this is now through Sunday afternoon. Total rainfall, you'll notice up here, and I should mention this is our blend of models, so all of our models put together here. But you look up through Alabama, upstate South Carolina, through North Carolina, northern Mississippi, basically no rain. And again, that's due to that dry air that is slowly working southward and helping to kind of, keep things, more pleasant than maybe you would expect this time of year. But as we get further south and as we get closer towards where that trough is picking up that moisture, look at this sharp gradient. Florida Panhandle, maybe only an inch or two of rain throughout this week, but you get down towards Fort Myers, likely widespread places are going to see 15, maybe even 20 inches of rain are not out of the question here, really from Tampa southbound. Again, especially down here into Fort Myers, Cape Coral, and back over towards Lake Okeechobee. Widespread rain totals in the double digits here throughout this week. A little bit less on the East Coast, although Miami could still crack double digits rainfall-wise here, but a little bit less as you get further up the Space Coast here and kind of up towards the Jacksonville area, where, again, more like the Panhandle, only an inch or two of rain. But again, a lot of rain and a lot of problems that could cause. Alrighty. Excuse me. So let's talk about the tropics here. I'm sure you've probably seen over on Facebook through Facebook weather groups and Twitter, people who like to post some of these things, or if you're on TikTok, which most of my audience probably isn't, but if you happen to be on TikTok, I'm sure you'll see a lot of people kind of hyping this one up. And we've seen some model runs over the past couple of days, specifically from the GFS, which kind of likes to do this this time of year, have been pumping out some solutions that show a big time, cyclone of sorts, or a tropical system as we call them here in this part of the world, in the Gulf of Mexico within 7 to 10 days. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's all a bunch of malarkey and it's not going to happen, but what I will say is I don't think a lot of the pictures you're probably seeing on social media are quite capturing the full story here. Now, this is what we're dealing with right now. A lot of, cold cloud tops indicating thunderstorms and active weather here in portions of the Western Caribbean and even down into the Southern Gulf. And this is definitely, a tropical wave of sorts. We have, a lot of thunderstorm activity. This time of year, the intertropical convergence zone likes to lift northward into this part of the world. And we get, again, that convergence at the surface, creating these thunderstorms and so on and so forth. And that's definitely, a byproduct, of what we're seeing right now. Or I guess this is a byproduct of that ITCZ that I just mentioned. Now, what could happen over the next couple of days, again, as that trough swings down, no matter what, some of this is getting pulled up into Florida, as I just showed you. That's going to bring a lot of rain, a lot of, flooding potential. But more importantly, it's what's happening about 7 days or so from now that the models are kind of beginning to maybe hint at a little bit. And I'll start with the GFS. Again, it's been the big culprit on showing this the past couple of days. So here we go. This is getting into this weekend, about Saturday afternoon here, and you'll notice, again, a lot of blue here in the Gulf and Caribbean. That just means disorganized weather. We've got overall low pressure in the region. But what you'll notice happening here, and again, this is only 5 or 6 days from now, is we're getting more of a closed-off low pressure to form here over the Gulf. Now, conditions over the Gulf are very ripe at the sea surface level, with temperatures here more than capable of of producing a tropical system. Wind shear, though, this time of year is a little bit more of a difficult thing to deal with, and you'll notice here already that this thing's kind of struggling to really close itself off and become a stronger storm. And as we move this into Sunday on the latest GFS, you'll notice it tries to do this, continues to try to develop into something, but just overall is kind of a messy low pressure, disorganized, and eventually kind of moves up into the Gulf Coast region on this model run somewhere near Louisiana or Texas. Now, even that is not a big deal. That is something we're very used to. In fact, this would be more of just a rain event than any kind of wind or storm surge event. And if we look at some of our other models, we'll look at the Canadian model here. Again, going through this week, this is in that same time frame about Saturday here, and you'll notice, again, it's still kind of showing something similar to the GFS. Disorganized thunderstorms trying to develop into something here near the Yucatan Peninsula. And as I move this further ahead on the Canadian, again, just really struggles, but kind of hangs out in the Gulf for a while, and kind of eventually here towards the end, finally closes off, becomes a little bit more pronounced here, but is more of a Mexico problem than for the United States. That's two models. We'll take a look at the European as well, which obviously is, has a good track record here in the tropical cyclone department. And again, similar story. This is going into this weekend. Disorganized showers and thunderstorms showing up with this blue in the Gulf, but again, still struggling to really close off into anything until maybe about 10 days out. Again, you'll notice, much like the Canadian showed, something out here near the Mexico coastline. But either way, all of these solutions, even if you put them all together and kind of get the worst case scenario, is still relatively manageable. So we'll watch it, and again, we could see something form, but I think the bigger deal nonetheless is going to be the rainfall potential that we have with anything that forms in the Gulf of Mexico over the next week or two. Now, this is precipitable water, these are QPF values, so not precipitable water. This is actually total rainfall, but within a 24-hour span. So watch what kind of happens here this week. Again, Tuesday, most of that rain over Florida, very likely. That continues into Wednesday, into Thursday here, even into Friday, into Saturday. But watch what happens going into this weekend. As the GFS showed, all of its ensemble members here kind of agreeing, something could finally get pulled up out of the Gulf here and try to make a beeline towards the Gulf Coast. And with that, rain chances increasing in that 7 to 10 day time frame here for a lot of folks over Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama with this model run. Now, that's just the GFS and its ensemble members. If we take a look at the European and its ensemble members, again, most of that rain over Florida through much of the work week, and then again, it kind of changes a little bit going into this weekend. We dry out a little bit more over Florida, but you'll notice this patch of, disorganized showers and thunderstorms, maybe something a little more organized. Could definitely try to make a run for tropical depression or storm, but either way, that moisture gets pulled up into Louisiana, Texas, and up into the Mississippi River Valley about 7 to 10 days from now. So the models actually agree pretty well on that. Just the big question is, can we get a named storm system out of this? And I'd fail to pull it up for you here, but actually, no, we can do it right on the fly here and pull it up, go to the NHC. And 7 days out, still nothing showing up here from the experts at the National Hurricane Center. So, just know chances are still relatively low for any sort of actual development, although possible. All right, that's all the tropical trouble we're dealing with. Unfortunately, it is June, and we are still within severe weather season, and specifically up into the northern Great Plains. So I'm going to briefly touch on this, as we do have a severe weather threat here within the next couple of days. Now this map, just to simplify it, is going to show the ingredients for severe weather, and you'll notice we get a pretty big uptick in that here over portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa starting Wednesday and into Thursday, and even try to work into the Midwest and the Great Lakes region into Thursday, Friday, and maybe even into the Northeast going into this weekend. So ingredients will increase for severe weather, and in fact, the Storm Prediction Center already highlighting that area 3 days from now. So this is Wednesday afternoon, again, a slight risk of severe weather through much of Minnesota into portions of Iowa, Wisconsin, and South Dakota and Nebraska. And then day 4, another band from kind of Detroit through Chicago, Des Moines, northern Missouri into the Kansas City area. Again, could see some strong storms. And we'll watch that trend to maybe continue even into the weekend for portions of the Northeast, and maybe even the northern Mid-Atlantic could try to get in on some of that severe weather. Alrighty, so I feel like we discussed a lot in today's video. Definitely a good 20 minutes of kind of weather coverage here. And again, apologize about not having a video out for the past little bit. I'm not going to guarantee that daily uploads will be a thing, but I'll definitely try to get on here more often and really, hone in on the videos a little bit more regularly as hurricane season picks back up and we have more kind of life-threatening weather that we need to discuss and get out there to the public. Alrighty, well, y'all have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll see you all next time.